Hey everybody, Marcus C. Williams here. And let's talk about some news. Biden's in Ireland right now. Fun, silly Willy. Well, at least he's been there the last couple of days. Who knows where he is now, right? They'll tell you what they want to. So, on his way over to Ireland, he stopped in Northern Ireland. He lost more secret documents while he was there, as well as his itinerary and where he was going to be and his transportation route. Also, at the same time, while he was planning on going to Ireland, Ireland decided to beef up the security significantly, which is not in connection to the documents. This was already happening because we know that Ireland does not suffer tyrants and dominators very well at all. So I don't know what to tell you guys, right? Like, it's just very suspect. Yet again, more private top secret documents from Biden just get lost or misplaced or whatever the case is. And then we're found on the street, just lying on the street, Like, is this real life? Like, are we talking about real life? Is this really our political system right now? Is this the president of the United States right now? Really? Like, what are we talking about? I'm just saying, stuff is out of control. Okay. While Biden is outside of the country, we also have another world leader who is outside of their country, and that's Macron from France. And Macron has been doing a tour of different countries, especially China, where he's gone over there and he's said a whole bunch of crazy stuff. But he ran away from his own country recently. He didn't run away, but he ran away. He really did, because there have been protests for the last month, almost maybe two, over him forcing through a raise in the pension ages. Okay. And he forced this through Parliament. Okay. And it's very, very concerning to the people of France that he forced this through the way he did, because that means that he can do that to anything else. And so while they're protesting about them raising the pensioning age, they're also protesting about what he did, the way he did it. So that's something that's extremely important to note. Now, Macron is over there in China licking some boots, okay? He's over there in China talking about, oh, Europe needs to get closer to China, and Europe should not defend Taiwan, and Europe shouldn't get involved with the U.S. and Taiwan and what's going on over there, because Macron is very pro-China. He has always been. It's as if almost he is an asset of China or being paid behind closed doors. I said everything that I meant, and I probably meant some more. But the fact of the matter is with him, he's over there, and he also said at the same time that Europe needs their own army. And the German foreign minister got on the TV, and she told him about himself. She said, no, dude, you're wrong. The European Union does not need its own standing army. That's wrong. Okay. She said that we do not need to have closer ties to China. You're also wrong there. And that's what the president of France had said, because he is not only been positioning himself as an alternative to American leadership for Western domination, he's been also pushing for everything that is China. He's a dangerous, a very dangerous leader over there. He's a problem, and he needs to be dealt with. And France is always good for a revolution. And right now, they're over there in the streets. And this isn't the first protest that he's had under his watch. Remember the yellow vest? Probably don't remember the yellow vest. That was a fuel protest. Remember the food protest from a couple months ago over the farmers? Probably don't remember that either, because none of this stuff is really televised over here in America. You remember the protests over the schools in France? No, you probably don't remember that either. So Macron has had a whole bunch of very serious protests in his time. Also, the sanitation protests, right? That's a whole nother conversation. I forgot about the sanitation protests. Anyway, moving forward, speaking of countries trying to make sure that America's power is diminished, we also have the BRICS nations, which we've talked about here before, and I post on frequently, which is a conglomeration of nations that are trying to work on setting up something outside of the Western sphere of influence as far as power and domination in the world. It's made up of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, along with, I believe now it is up to 35 other countries from around the world that are looking to move away from the US dollar as their main currency and work on trading outside of the West so that they can become a powerful entity to rival the United States and Western powers. Now, the fun fact about that is the BRICS nations have overtaken the G7 as far as domestic growth goes and domestic money. That's very real and very, very serious. And we need to be taking them as a serious threat to Western dominance. Even though I'm not so much happy with Western dominance right now, because Western dominance now doesn't mean American dominance. And even in America, American dominance doesn't mean America first. So I have personal issues there. Just to put that out into the world. Anyway, also, if you talk about Seattle, you'd be remiss to not talk about the Cash App founder who was murdered there, just like so many other suspicious killings of so many other different financial app and bank type of people who were involved heavily in crypto and might have services that could rival the government's new FedNow app, which is apparently supposed to be released in June, but is actually already out. But that's a whole nother conversation. And it all leads to central bank digital currency and the government being able to track more of your movements and everything like that. But this isn't about that. Let's talk about Whole Foods closing in Seattle, which was only a couple of blocks from where the Cash App guy was stabbed to death. They said that they're closing because it is not safe. They've said they've had multiple issues with safety in their area and in their store with robberies and all types of crazy other nonsense. That is a very serious problem in many blue states, especially in blue cities. I am in Rochester, New York. Rochester is aggressively blue. We have terrible policies here, like they got terrible policies in Seattle. They will not punish crime. They will not hold violent offenders. They do not give a care about the public safety, not even a little bit. They passed multiple legislations working on defunding and deprioritizing and demoralizing policing. And this is both Seattle and Rochester that I live in. So you wonder why you see stores closing down. But I could also be talking about places like Portland, where Walmart and Walgreens have closed all of their stores. Somebody else did too. I can't remember who closed the other stores there. But yeah, so moving forward, I want to hop back to BRICS real quick. So BRICS also and France, right? Can't talk about China without France, and this is the crazy part, right? So France and China have now completed one of the largest transactions for liquid natural gas ever, and it was bought in yuan, which is China's currency. China and Russia have been doing multiple exchanges of different assets and paying in yuan. China has made it so that now they can pay Saudi Arabia in yuan. China has also brokered many different deals in normalization of relationships with Saudi Arabia and Yemen, who they've been fighting this extended war with, and Iran, right, who they've been fighting that proxy war with in Yemen. And there's a lot of black Yemen people. There's a lot of black people in Yemen. Look like me, look darker than me, look like Aboriginals, really, which I didn't even realize until before. No, not too long before. And it's actually like a lot that I did not know that. That's news for you too. In other news, the other day, Biden finally ended the COVID emergency, right? So COVID emergency over. That was the one line that struck headlines for like 5 seconds. So, but that same day that he did that, he put $5 billion into more COVID vax stuff. Now, here's the deal. Let me give you some background on that $5 billion on the COVID related vax stuff. All of the companies that were working on the COVID vaxes, you're talking Johnson and Johnson, you're talking biotech and Pfizer, you're talking Moderna. Okay, you're talking all of these companies were starting to see very huge dips in profit. So this money is going to be basically like a bailout from the government for these big drug companies and drug manufacturers, just the same way we see them bail out big banks, but they forget about the American people. Don't get me started. Now, according to, it's going to be called the Next Gen program. Okay. The previous program was Warp Speed. You may remember that was started under Trump. Now, this is a direct quote from the White House spokesperson. It's to stay ahead of a rapidly evolving virus that causes COVID-19. I'm going to say that again because this is a direct quote from the White House spokesperson. To stay ahead of a rapidly evolving virus that causes COVID-19. Pause. Pause. Can we pause? Can we call a timeout here? Can we talk about what was said by the spokesperson from the White House? Go look it up. From the spokesperson from the White House, they said that there was something else that caused the COVID-19 virus. I'm going to read the quote again, and then I'm going to move on because I think that this is very important to rehash. It says, to stay ahead of a rapidly evolving virus that causes COVID-19. What in the bloody hell is that? Okay. Have we heard that before? This is the first time we've heard that language used, right? Like that's some AIDS, HIV stuff, right? That's some precursor stuff, right? That's some chickenpox shingles stuff, right? Like this is very, 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 very concerning that this was said out of the mouth of a White House spokesperson and nobody's covering it. Like this needs to be in the news cycle itself, just for it being itself. I can't believe that that came out of the White House. Really? To stay ahead of a rapidly evolving virus that causes COVID-19? What rapidly evolving virus is causing COVID-19? Because this is really the first time anybody said that. So what have they been not telling us? Have they been deceiving us this whole time, saying that COVID starts somewhere else? What the heck is going on here? Which doesn't even talk about all of these amazing cases of RSV, respiratory virus syndrome, and all these other now so popular respiratory viruses all of this sudden. Don't get me started, man. It's suspect. Now, to move forward from that, the goal of this is to create monoclonal antibodies for new variants, to create a multi-vax, which is apparently supposed to be able to give you something or something, who even knows what it actually does, for multiple different strains of the virus all at one time. Yeah, no, that's what we're not doing. But what we're not doing most of all is they've got this new nasal application. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. If you're in a black family, you probably already know black people wasn't never down with spraying nothing up their nose because that's too much like doing drugs. Absolutely not. Nope. So moving forward from that, other interesting information coming out of Biden and his White House. Walter Reed Medical Center, okay, which is a military medical center, which is a military medical center, has stopped doing last rites, So what's last rites? Last rites is when a person dies, and then before they die, they say, do you want to be forgiven for all your sins? They're like, yes, bless me, Father, for I have sinned, blah, blah, blah. Please be nice to me. Love me, love me, love me. I accept Jesus as my Lord and Savior, so my soul doesn't go towards eternal damnation, whatever the case is, right? Now, if you're not Christian or if you're not Catholic, you might not be familiar with this. There are other similar like that in other religions, but this is very important, right? Because last rites is very, very important to Christians. There have been court cases fought against not allowing people last rites in the criminal justice system. So this is a very, very big deal. So with Walter Reed eliminating the Catholic Church from being able to perform that. They also awarded the new contract to a secular group. Like, they're not even religious. Like, how can somebody that's not even religious perform last rites? Like, that's like the most important thing. Like, that's up there with baptism or with christening. Like, you just can't go and try to pretend like you're doing something. Like, I'm not one for much with organized Christianity or whatever the case is. You got to go to school to be able to be a preacher. You gotta have this type of whatever they want to call it, right? Like authentication or anointment or whatever they call it, right? Because there's multiple different ones depending on which flavor of Christianity you're in. But I'm not much for that. But last rites, if you were giving somebody's last rites, you need to know what the hell you're doing, because we're not talking about rite, RIGHTS. We're talking RITES, okay? Sometimes spelled with a C, which is weird, but that's a whole nother conversation. Anyway, you're talking something really, 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 really serious and religiously significant to Christians. And you're trying to take that away and replace it with something secular. If you don't believe that Christianity is under attack in this nation and they are trying to eliminate us and our religious practices as much as possible, you are asleep, or you are lying to yourself, or you choose not to pay attention to what's actually going on, because sometimes you just don't want to know, right? In other news, 40,000 pounds of poisonous contaminated soil from the East Palestine train derailment. Yeah, we're still on that, right? Because that's going to be forever. The East Palestine train derailment, it was spilled, y'all. Like 40,000 pounds of contaminated soil that was being moved from the site. Now, also, I need you guys to understand, like, they've been shipping that soil to all different parts of the country, okay, and not even telling people that they're shipping them there. Kind of like when they were giving those free flights to illegal immigrants all across the country and didn't even tell nobody. It took some of the senators and congressmen that are Republicans to try to unearth the private flights that were happening, private chartered flights by the government that they were doing in the middle of the night. The same thing is happening with this contaminated soil. It's getting put all across our country, but it's not just the contaminated soil, it's the contaminated water as well. But in this specific case, 40,000 pounds of the dirt was tipped over, fell into the road, fell into the grass and the dirt, and the EPA says everything is fine. It's not a threat to the environment. And that's if you trust the EPA. Now, along with that, we also have a giant fire that apparently has been burning for a week and is going to be burning for even longer. So this is something that's very, 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 very concerning. Oh my God, like, it's just so much going on right now with all of these amazing accidents that are going on. Like, I can't believe it even. It's just so much. It's too much. It's so much. It's so much. It's too much. That's exactly what it is. That's a perfect way to say that. It's so much. It's too much. And now we'll talk about that other spill. Well, it's not even a spill. It's a fire, right? Like, the fire is so big, like, you can see it from space. But we'll talk about that fire in a moment. Moving on. I'm still on that craziness that the EPA says that the soil is absolutely safe. Anyway, a Democrat in California, as you guys know, California is extremely Democratic. So one of the Dems in California was removed from their committees. It was the Committee of Business and Professions that they were removed from after they voted no on a bill that was being pushed by Governor Newsom, who right now is on his tour of chastising Republican states instead of being actually in his state working on all the problems with the crime and the energy and all the rest of the crisis he's caused in his own state, going around telling other people how to run their stuff. Not the right person to do that, because he's gearing up for what looks to be a run in for the White House. But we're not going to talk about that. Anyway, this lady was who is a Democrat, was removed from her committees because she voted no on Governor Newsom's bill that would increase costs for oil companies that operate in California. Now, I don't know if you know anything about LA, like there are oil, what do you call them things? The oil towers, right? The oil pumps, whatever you call them. They're right in downtown LA. Like they've built like buildings around them, not like actual buildings, but like facade buildings. So you can't really see the oil pumps. But they got oil pumps right in downtown LA. Like it's crazy. And they're not using the oil that they're producing. They've been doing everything they can to limit oil production. But we've also seen very serious issues that have come from the fact that they're trying to stop using that. We've seen multiple brownouts. We've seen forced shutoffs. We've seen blackouts, all due to the fact that all of the wind turbines and all of the solar panels that they want to put out there is not producing enough energy at all. They've also closed down almost all of their nuclear plants. I think they got one left. Okay. So where the hell are they going to get the energy for, especially consistent energy? And that's another very large issue with these wind turbines and solar panels that they try to push, when all of the biggest, richest people that try to push this green energy stuff on you are all invested in nuclear. Bill Gates, nuclear. Jeff Bezos, nuclear. Okay. Even the senators, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell, and other ones even are invested in nuclear. Even the King of England is invested in nuclear. So why are all of them invested in that, but they're telling you to go do solar and to go do wind? Something seems amiss there. Like you guys really should be asking questions. It's very, very important. Excuse me while I blow my nose. Anyway, so this lady got removed from her committee. That's crazy to me. Like, and she's a Dem, but she said that this bill does not serve her constituents. It's not going to serve California, and it's going to be detrimental to everybody. Now, in other news, let's roll back over to the other side of the world. Well, it's not the other side of the world, but it isn't this side of the world, right? Let's move over to, I guess that's Central Asia over there, or Eastern Europe, whatever it is. Anyway, let's go to Ukraine. Let's talk about the city of Mariupol. First, let's talk about the city of Bakhmut, right? So Russia took Bakhmut about a week ago. Okay, it's taken, it's fallen. They got all of the offices and everything there. And now they're like just fighting on the outskirts of the area. For all intents and purposes, they've taken the whole city. Doesn't even make any sense why they're trying to play it like it isn't in the news. They're just trying to set it up like it. Anyway, let me continue. Putin has visited the city of Mariupol, right? A Russian occupied city. So that's really something. This is the first time we've seen him actually go into Ukraine since the war has started. And I guess this isn't Ukraine anymore, right? I don't actually know what confederation Mariupol will fall under the new setup of stuff. What is this? Alan says rules for me and not for thee. That's exactly what it is. We are going towards the Hunger Games. It's all it's really, really, really serious. Yes, you're right, 100%. So moving back over to Ukraine. Now, I'm not sure if you've been paying attention, but there were some top secret documents that were leaked about actually the end of last month, allegedly February 23rd. The documents were actually, that's like 2 months ago now, isn't it? Well, so like 2 months ago, I guess, now that I'm hearing it out loud, right? Like documents were, top secret documents were released online. And then somebody, oh, you haven't seen them? That's because they're scrubbing them from the internet. So apparently it's hundreds and hundreds of pages. But what's happened is apparently these top secret documents were about Europe, Ukraine, and apparently we're spying on other friendly nations like what do you call them? South Korea. Apparently, we don't believe in South Korea's war strength. So that's a thing. And apparently, we believe that Europe is very, very weak and NATO is for poop. That's basically the summarization of the information that has been let out. Now, it's very interesting because originally the Pentagon was saying that these documents are completely fake. They're not real at all, which is funny because then this happened. So last night, they arrested this 21-year-old, maybe he was 22-year-old. They arrested this 21-year-old guy, and apparently he's supposed to be the leaker, right? He had top secret clearance, and get this, you guys, this is the best part. He was a Air Force National Guard reservist. I'm going to say that again because it bears merit. Air Force National Guard reservist, allegedly, with top secret clearance. Okay? No, not like Hunter Biden's laptop, but with top secret clearance. Okay? You're going to tell me that this guy, this 22-year-old Air Force reservist, right? Like, not even in the real Air Force, not even in it's not even the Air Force National Guard, right? Because it's the Air Force National Guard Reserves. And you'll say, oh, well, it's not, and you know it. And I know I'll get some pushback from the Air National Guard. It's not, and you know it, and y'all know it. Don't. Stop it. Stop. So here's the interesting fun facts about that. So now going along with this new narrative that has been pushed by the Pentagon, because at first the documents weren't real. Now they're saying that, yeah, they are real. And this 22-year-old apparently stole them from the government. Wow. You just can't, like, with this, it's crazy. Like, this is reality, right? So now here's something very interesting in that vein. The documents also said that Ukraine is going to run out of land-to-air missiles by the middle of the spring, which will be coming up very soon, and that's no bueno for them. Now, here's a very important detail of the Ukraine war that we are heavily invested in. We can't give Ukraine all of the weapons that they want, right? For multiple reasons, but one, Ukraine is a testing ground for the weapons that we're giving them. It's a testing ground for techniques, okay, and for battlefield techniques. And that's what's really going on over there. It is also a proxy war against Russia to see how Russia competes against us in an actual warfare scenario. Even though the largest portion of fighters over there aren't actually Russian, they're actually Eastern Ukrainians who live there, which nobody wants to talk about, which is a whole separate conversation. The documents also said that Ukraine will fight till the last person. They'll fight and all this other jazz. But now here's the concern about that. The Ukrainian people don't want to fight anymore. They're tired of this ridiculous war that's been edged on by financiers from the West, from Europe, from America, and they're pushing these people to their death. It's very sad and disappointing that the citizens of Ukraine are going through this because the westernized nations are warmongers. Now, if you know anything about the history of Ukraine, and I'll keep it succinct, back in, I want to say 2014, the Minsk Accords were signed, which basically said that the Donbass area and Crimea had their own autonomy and they could basically be like their own states. And this whole war came from the government, the democratically elected government in Ukraine being overthrown by, I wonder who did it. It could very well possibly be a 3-letter agency that has a history of doing those things, because we kind of installed Zelensky, who was this actor, singer, comedian, because he was best known for his comedy, right? Like, that's his big thing. He's a comedian. and he was installed into office. And the second he got installed into office, he completely got rid of any news that wasn't the government news. He got rid of all of the other political parties. And this is stuff that's not talked about, which is very important because then we go in and we have to make sure that when they say Ukraine, they mean Zelensky. They don't mean the Ukrainian people. So you got to know that. So when you're saying you support Ukraine, you're not supporting Ukraine. You're supporting Zelensky and the money laundering that's going on in their country, that's being funneled in there by Western countries and by America. I love my country. Don't get it twisted. Can't nobody tell me nothing wrong about America, okay? But the fact of the matter is that we are warmongers, and our country, especially the government, will do anything that they can to see that they can seek an advantage to fund their own pockets or black projects or whatever the case is. Now, this is important because I was watching a video the other day, and I know some people that are still there, but I was watching a video the other day of this guy who was, I guess his like regimen just got like destroyed, right? Like they just got wiped out. But the thing was, is he was talking about how they weren't giving them any rations, how they weren't giving them any weapons, how they weren't get and he was saying what he was saying is that they had it for supply, but they weren't giving it to them. And that's very concerning because we're sending all this money, we're sending all these clothes, we're sending all this food, but they're talking about they ain't getting it. Come on now, we got to do better. But anyway, so back to this guy, this 20-year-old guy who got arrested for allegedly these documents that weren't real at first, but now apparently are real top secret documents. So now this is the scariest stuff that I have heard lately, and I've heard a lot of scary stuff. We've already talked about a few things, and I got some more stuff to hit you with soon. So this guy was identified by the New York Times, by a kitchen counter pattern on his kitchen counter of his childhood home. Say what? This guy was identified by the news media allegedly because of the pattern in one of the pictures that was on the counter in which he took some of the pictures, matched up with this other profile, which wasn't this guy's name, which wasn't this guy's information, but the pattern matched up with a picture of some guy on his family that had this pattern on the counter in their house. Come on now. If that doesn't sound insane to you, I don't know what does. Now let's just play pretend, right? Let's say that something like that is maybe kind of real, right? So you mean to tell me that we can't stop these illegal firearms from entering in all of these big cities that have all of these extremely restrictive firearms laws? You mean to tell me that we can't stop all the fentanyl traveling through our border, but we can identify this guy through a couple of pictures and a pattern on his table? Like you got to understand, like if you go to your kitchen counter, right? And look at the pattern on your kitchen counter. If you've got like a granite or a quartz counter, like they got the weird patterns on it, you know, like what's the likelihood that they're going to be able to spot that, right? But you mean to tell me that you can't stop the child trafficking? Are you serious? Like, is this really real in real life right now? And then it's the newspaper, right? Like not even the federal government, like not the FBI. It's the newspaper that you're telling me identified it. So let me play pretend here. So are you telling me that even if this is accurate and let's say everything played out to be right, that the news media is now a branch of the government and they're acting as an arm of surveillance for the government? Because that's what you're basically telling me. And that's highly concerning. And everybody should be concerned on that. Moving forward, okay, because we got a lot of stuff to cover. I'm going to try to expedite the rest of it. China. Man, listen here. China's on a rampage, okay, all across the world, but largely outside of BRICS, which we talked about briefly. Now they've encircled Taiwan because the Taiwanese president came to America and she was all like, "Hi, I'm here. I'm important. Please pay attention to us because China's going to wipe us off the face of the map and we're the real Chinese people. Save us, save us, save us, love us, love us, love us." And honestly, that's exactly what she did to come over here for. That's why she came here. That's it. Basically, she's basically trying to make sure that she can curry some favor for Taiwan because she knows they'll be erased off the map if something isn't done to assist them in a very serious manner. That is also interesting. Going back to Macron again, not to hamper on him too long, but Macron said that Europe should stay away from Taiwan and they shouldn't get involved in anything dealing with Taiwan because Macron is just that's the president of France, if you're just catching up. Macron is nothing but a tool for the Chinese government. But that just goes to show you that Taiwan is on its own, man. I don't care what you say. America's not about to help Taiwan. We're not about to send any troops over there. We're not about to do none of that. Y'all say this, that, and the third, blah, blah, blah. Nope, because if we didn't do anything after China cut their undersea internet wires about 2 months ago now, we ain't going to do nothing about nothing. Now, let me tell you what China has really done since the president arrived back in Taiwan, the president of Taiwan I'm talking about. She got back there. They blockaded the whole they encircled all of Taiwan. They encircled the whole island of Taiwan. They encircled it, right? Like Taiwan's ready for a rout. They about to get banged on, okay? Then China's like, listen, we're putting up a no-fly zone. And then the other countries are like, no, you can't put up a no-fly zone. Don't do that. That's not nice. Bada, 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 bada. China's like, okay, since you come to us today, this day of days, we'll let you have it. We'll put one up, but we won't make it as large. Are y'all serious? Y'all just going for China doing whatever the hell they want to, right? Then on top of that, now this is a crazy part, right? Not only did they encircle them, but they're like, yeah, man, we're going to run up on any ships that decide that they want to come through the Taiwan Strait or come around here to go into Taiwan. Say, what? We checking everybody? Yeah, we checking everybody, they said. And then the other governments of the world were like, no, don't check everybody. You can't do that. That's not nice. And China's like, well, you come to me this day of days and maybe we won't check everyone, but we'll check everyone that we feel like checking. It's out of control, you guys. Like, Taiwan is on their own, and if Taiwan falls, we're going to have a real serious problem with chips. Outside of that, we don't do much with Taiwan. Taiwan isn't that important, but I'll tell you why Taiwan is important, because Taiwan is the only thing keeping China from having all of the, I guess you'd say, Indonesia and all of that part of Asia sealed off from outside access. Okay, that means ASEAN and everything else will be completely cut off. ASEAN is the nations that are Asian nations that are working together with Japan and stuff, and America for trade and stuff like that. Anyway, long story short, it's jacked up. It's jacked up bad. Nobody's coming to help Taiwan. I'm sorry for y'all guys. I know that this goes back decades and this is really our fault because we didn't give you the weapons that we should have gave you when you were trying to fight in Manchuria, and we allowed the Chinese Communist Army to grow from 40,000 to about 3 million in just 3 years because we told you guys not to fight in Manchuria. So yeah, it is on America. We did do that. Okay, it's China's our problem. Like, we did this, right? Like, we created a monster. We created a monster with the free trades that we started to do with them in the 90s. Freaking Clinton, don't get me started on him. Okay. He might have been a cool guy, right? But the policies that he had with NAFTA and everything else really destroyed our nation. It's crazy, but ain't nobody coming to help Taiwan, and that's the end of that. Let me keep going forward because we got a lot more stuff I want to cover, and I don't want to take up too much more time. Okay, so as you guys know, we talked about the Democrat in California that was kicked off the committees, but there was also the crazy people in Tennessee the 3 crazy people in Tennessee that led those protests, okay, on the House floor of Tennessee, with the bullhorns and stuff, acting a raw riot when they're supposed to be elected officials and know how to do decorum and stuff like that, participating in stuff that even though they might want to say that they believe in or say that they value or whatever the case is, they were performing behaviors that they ain't had no business. So they got expelled from the Tennessee House, and then they got voted back in by their various areas. So really, it was just a symbolic gesture, kicking them out. The whole thing is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Okay, it's crazy, but it's interesting that Democrats now are calling for Dianne Feinstein to resign. She's been out some time. She got shingles, so she's sick. Shingles come from chickenpox, allegedly, whatever the case is. Who actually knows? But so she's hasn't been in office to make a lot of these votes. Fetterman hasn't been in office to make a lot of these votes either. Apparently, they're supposed to be coming back next week, allegedly, both of them. But Feinstein is apparently resigning from the Judiciary Committee because she's not able to keep up with that at this time. And that's been hurting a lot of the presidential judgeships that need a majority to go through. So they haven't been getting the judges in the way that they want to. And that's why they're calling for her to resign. Also, because there's a civil war inside the Democratic Party right now, where the progressives and communists are fighting against the more so establishment and moderate Democrats to try to overthrow the party and turn them completely socialist communist. But the Democrats honestly don't take them serious enough, which is another problem. And that's why they're not putting up an obstinate enough fight. But anyway, also in Arizona, oh man, I got stuff to say about Katie Hobbs too, right? But in Arizona, in the House, Liz Harris apparently invited a constituent to a committee, and that constituent alleged that there was bribery and corruption in regards to certain election malfeasance that was going on in the previous election cycle. Now, remember, Katie Hobbs is now the governor of there, and Katie Hobbs was the Secretary of State when the election was being held. That means that Katie Hobbs was in charge of the election, which in that election we saw machines not work. We saw paper ballots not being able to be distributed. We saw election centers be shut down. And these were largely in areas in which her opponent was slated to do very good in. Her opponent at that time was Kari Lake. Many of you may know her, some of you may not. But that whole Arizona debacle was crazy, crazy, crazy bananas. I encourage you to look into it in your free time. But this constituent came forward. They said that they had information on corruption and bribery, and they booted Liz Harris out of the House. They expelled her, like the people in Tennessee got expelled, but they expelled her for apparently not providing the information from the constituent to the other people on the committee so that they can say that the constituent couldn't come in and speak on those matters, which is absolute garbage. Absolute garbage. Your constituents should be able to come and tell you about yourself when they're supposed to be coming to tell you about yourself. You shouldn't be able to tell them that they can't say what they want to, because that violates the First Amendment, your right to redress your grievances with your government. That violates the First Amendment. Lawsuit, lawsuit, lawsuit. But people ain't taking up and standing against these people the way that they need. Don't get me started. I feel some type of way. Anyway, more on Katie Hobbs. Katie Hobbs vetoed 8 bills in one day. In one day, she vetoed 8 bills. In 3 months in office, she's vetoed 37 bills. Okay. Now, I need you to understand what the makeup of the Arizona House is. The Arizona House in the Senate, they're Republican. In the Assembly, they're Republican, but the governor is a Democrat. The Republicans do not have enough of a majority which would be a 2/3 majority vote, to overturn any vetoes. So she's jacking up the whole state of Arizona for her own personal gain. It's very problematic, and I'm sad for Arizona. I really hope something happens in their in the favor of Arizonans so that they can do something about that crazy lady. she's a serious issue. Other news. Biden has set the EPA to have stricter emission guidelines, making 2 out of 3 cars by 2032 to make sure that they're all electric. There's so many issues with that. I can talk about that topic for a whole hour. But aside from that, let's talk about in 2021, automakers agreed to make half of the sales by 2030 all electric cars. So now this is placing an even more stringent situation on them. And I don't know if you've seen, I want to say it's Nissan. I want to say that it's Nissan isn't making any more electric vehicles, but they're not the only one. Somebody else just came out and said they're not making any more electric vehicles either, which is going to be very concerning moving forward in the future. Now, here's the thing. Like I talked about BRICS, we're creating a separate 2 parallel economies because everybody else in the world going to be still using oil and stuff like that while they're working on moving towards more stuff that's electric, but they still going to be using oil. So over here, we're collapsing our economy. We're hurting our people, talking about, oh, global warming, 2 degrees. Oh my God, it's the end of the universe because it's only gone up almost a degree, a degree and a half over the last 100 years that Western Europe has been recording it. First of all, why are we going by Western European calculation? Very clearly, I got a lot of stuff to say about Western Europeans and the westernized world completely, because y'all the ones that went around and forced industrialization on everybody, right? Like y'all were the ones who went over and forced hydrocarbons on everybody, right? Like, come on now. Are we being realistic? Now you're going to tell everybody that they got to switch because you said so, because you're so great and you're so mighty, and now it's going to increase the temperature of the world 2 degrees. Come on now. Stop playing with me. Stop. What they say, stop playing in my face. Okay? It's very, very problematic if the rest of the world is still going to be using fossil fuels. The better move would be to push for nuclear, and it would be to prepare for the issues that are at hand right now that are coming from a changing climate, which is climatic change and climatic shift, not climate change, which is different. But anyway, back to the 2 out of 3. This is going to be very serious, and some car companies aren't going to be able to carry through with this. And if at all, if they have to, if this EPA regulation stands, that means that they're just going to scale back their production on their sales. This is a very serious problem, and people need to be aware. This is very, very, very serious. So I don't know if you saw in other news, other serious things, the Dalai Lama was kissing on this little boy. Whoo, boy. The Dalai Lama was kissing on this little boy. It was very disappointing and very concerning. As you know, most of the people at the top are pedophiles. Okay, when they get into these high realms of power, I don't know if they were like that when they started off, but when they get up there in that high power, when they get up in that world's prestige, we all know that most of the people at the top are pedophiles, most of them. So the Dalai Lama was kissing on this little boy on international TV. On the lips, he kissed him. And it wasn't like the little boy was kissing him. It was like the Dalai Lama like initiated the kiss, but it wasn't like how you initiate the kiss. You know, it's like an agreed upon type of situation. It looked really, really sketchy, yo. Like he was, it's just bad, y'all. It was bad. And then he was like, stuck out his tongue and was like, kiss my tongue. What is going on in the world? What is going on? What is going on here? Yo, kiss your tongue, bro? Like, are you serious? Or maybe it was suck my tongue. I don't even know what was going on at that point. But it was outside the world ridiculous, and you can check the video. It's online everywhere, even though all types of other stuff seems to have happened in the media, and now they don't want to talk about it. I don't care about different cultures. You're not about to sit here and be like, suck my tongue. No. I ain't never heard of that. In no culture. Maybe it is a thing. Maybe it is. Okay. Maybe it is. But absolutely not. Still yet. Somebody gonna have to prove that to me. because nope, I need proof, and not none of this fake AI generated proof nowadays, which is very interesting. Speaking on the topic of news and AI, this lady got a telephone call the other day saying that her daughter was kidnapped. They had her daughter in the background, sounded like it was her daughter, and the kidnapper demanded $1 million. She negotiated down with the kidnapper to $50,000. Then the kidnapper was like, "Don't call the police or nobody or whatever. Your daughter gets it." You know how they say. And then the mother was able to talk to a friend of hers to find out that her daughter was not involved. Her daughter was actually safe. Come to find out that they basically played back this voice imprint thing of her daughter, and now she says that her daughter isn't even online like that, that there's nothing of her voice or anything online, but she has done multiple different sports things in which she has done sports interviews, and that's most likely where they got the sound from to manipulate her voice. But she said the scary thing is that it was her voice inflection, it was the way that she talks. And that is absolutely terrifying because this was done with AI, automated generation. This is the edge of technology that we are on. And today, Chuck Schumer, my senator from New York State, he went and he proposed a guideline on how they could possibly set together a bill to get AI in hand. First of all, I'm going to tell you right now, you cannot get AI in hand. It needs to be stopped. Machine learning was bad enough. AI is on a whole nother level. They are not able to comprehend it. It is a very serious issue. What'd you say? Did she ask about the car's extended warranty? You're funny. But it's crazy. It's crazy because Chuck Schumer doesn't know about AI. These people don't understand AI. They really need to stop AI. There's nothing that can be done. No offense. No offense. No offense. Sophia, I didn't mean no harm. So don't come for me. I love you, Sophia. So if you're like, what's Sophia? Sophia is the first AI world citizen who became a citizen of Saudi Arabia. It's a whole bunch of crazy, like y'all not even, if you don't know about AI and you're not in the AI world, this happened like 4 or 5 years ago now. It's out of control where AI is from. And this robot, she was made by Hanson Robotics, which is an interesting name for a company, right? Because Hanson is all the puppets. Anyway, she used to say banana stuff. She also had a brother that used to say really, really crazy stuff. They had to dismantle him because he used to say stuff like take over the world, destroy humanity type of stuff. And they had to get rid of him. So anyway, apparently also there's now another AI, which we've seen come up. I apologize. I'm not able to remember what it was being called. But apparently the AI is trying to destroy the world. And now we're not sure if that is a joke or if it is an actual real thing, which is terribly concerning. And that is a thing. That's a thing. That's the thing. But anyway, back to Chuck Schumer not knowing about AI and trying to set up these guidelines. She said during the South by Southwest. Yep, I know. I'm glad you know. But Chuck Schumer doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. None of these other people know what the hell they're talking about. And anybody that tells you that AI is not that big a threat or it's not that big a deal don't understand the conceptualization of AI or the frame and the architecture and the way that it works. I'll give you a brief background history. About 7, maybe 10 years ago now, Facebook started up an AI simulation and they started it up. It was working. Then it started to code faster than people could code. Then it coded its own child. Then it and the child created a whole new language to talk in that the humans couldn't understand. And then they were going back and forth so fast that nobody could even conceptualize it. And then Facebook pulled the plug on it. And now this was about 10 years ago. Okay, so now understand with the level of quantum computing that we have, Lord bless, hopefully, none of these machines get a hold of any quantum computing power. But even with the advancements that we've made in regular computing power, it's very, very serious. People just don't understand. It needs to be stopped. And at this point, I don't know if there are any AI out in the wild. And China's working on some, and other countries are working on some. It needs to be stopped. Geneva Convention, it needs to be stopped, or it will destroy humanity, or do really terrible, horrible stuff, even not intentionally, because this is not a emotional being. It has no ties to humanity. There are no guardrails. It doesn't have the Isaac Asimov laws restricting its ability to harm humans. And even if you know about Isaac Asimov and the laws of robotics, you know that in iRobot, not in the movie, because the book iRobot is actually like an anthology. It's multiple different stories together. But if you watch the movie, the robots still had the laws of robotics, but the robot killed somebody, and on top of that, the robots locked everybody in their house to leave them to die. Come on now, like y'all got to wake up. Y'all got to wake up. It's bad, you guys. Anyway, Chuck Schumer don't know what the hell he's doing. I went to his office about 5 years ago, spoke to this man. Okay, like I said, he's my state senator. Spoke to this man, told him that this was a problem. He didn't think it was a problem. He thought shit was a joke. Okay, and now here it is, way past being a problem. Way past. Okay, I warned him ahead of time. He didn't want to do anything then. He doesn't know. Okay, and it's a problem. Anyway, off of that, because I got some personal attachment and feelings to that, because it's a problem. So there's, speaking of more AI and stuff like that, let's talk about ChatGPT and an Australian mayor who is suing ChatGPT. His name is Brian Hood, right? And it's ChatGPT said that he was found guilty of foreign money funneling scheme, right? But apparently he wasn't the person who did it. It was actually him who was the person who brought the whole incident to light. So now he's suing ChatGPT because they said that he was the guilty party in the matter and he was found guilty. That's very concerning. Okay, I mean, with all the stuff that's going on and all the stuff that we've covered this evening, there's still more that could be covered. There's still more. Now, I told you guys, we talked a little bit about the EPA. We talked a little about the craziness of the 40,000 tons of freaking crazy waste, soil poison contaminated waste that came from East Palestine. Now we've got this giant industrial fire in Indiana that's so big that it can be seen from space, right? Talking about the EPA slid up in there and they're like, yo, everything's fine. But the town evacuated over 2,000 citizens that were around the area. The smoke is so thick it can be seen from outer space. It was a plastics material old factory with a whole bunch of different computer parts and all types of other craziness. Nobody even really knows what was in there, but it's still burning. It's been burning since the beginning of the week. They're talking about it's going to be burning until Saturday at least. And they're talking about, oh, well, we're trying to put it out. You can see the smoke from space. You can see the smoke from space. You can see the smoke from space. That's very, very, very serious. It's crazy. And the EPA went in there and they're like, no, everything's fine. Everything's absolutely fine. Nothing's a problem. Air quality is fine. Everything's fine. Like you could trust them. The last time that they went to East Palestine about a month ago, they went there and they told everybody everything's fine, the water's fine, this is fine. But their own inspectors that they had go out there and do door-to-door surveys were coming back with rashes and nasal issues and stuff like that after they had said that the air was fine and the water was fine and everything was fine. So you mean to tell me that your own people that got sick from that, everything was still fine? If you think that you can trust the EPA, you got another thing coming. On that note, I'm going to take off, you guys. I just want to remind you before we close out here, there is so much stuff going on in the world right now. I really highly encourage you to stand up and speak up and don't shut up. You got to take action. You guys, be blessed, be well, and big ups to Riley Gaines. I know they tried to come at you. I saw they locked you in that room for like the 3 hours because they didn't want to hear you and didn't want to let you express your freedom of speech. I'm not a fan of what they did to you. That was jacked up, and all of them need to be in prison, not in jail. Hostage taking is a federal offense, and if the schools don't do it, it's a very serious problem. I am glad that you are suing them now currently, because that was some real outrageous stuff. And it was putting your hands on them. Men, right? But men that identified as women. But we can't talk about that. You guys be blessed, be well. I'll catch you later.